And we're now live. Welcome to this edition of the Sales Slap podcast. Here we go. Let's get her going.
To the Sales Slap podcast, where we hit you with the hard truths, bold strategies, and expert insights you need to master the art of selling. And who's leading the charge? Meet your hosts, Rick Denley, Simon Hares, and Scott Donald. Get ready for real talk, expert advice, and game-changing strategies. Because in sales, you don't just play, you slap. Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're dancing today.
And there's Simon and your host, Rick Denley, as mentioned, Scott Donaldson. And Simon, how you doing? You're back from, you're in recovery mode now. How's Simon doing to start with?
Well, I'm really good, and I'm medicated to the hilt. So
I was kidding earlier. I was trying to find the AI filter for Simon, and he says, "You don't filter me," and he got rather upset. So,
and if you try, then I will hit you with my stick.
Wow. Okay, we're just going to
go
raw
because it's quite long, and it will reach you.
All right across the ocean, which is great. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great guest today. Let me introduce to you here this gentleman in Martin Lesperance, which means hope. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about Martin before we jump right in. Martin inspires people to take action. So they're happy, engaged, and motivated, and their organizations make an impactful difference in the world. He says that he delivers customized and dynamic speeches, workshops for various audiences and organizations covering topics such as leadership, teamwork, communication, innovation, and resilience. Bonjour, Martin. Comment ça va?
Dangerously good. I'm so happy to be with you all together this morning.
I told Simon we were doing this one in French. And what did you say, Simon?
Oh, we can't repeat that. We can't repeat it.
Du Borsan.
That's right. There's three statements he knows in French. Martin, we're really excited to have. Oh, good to know. Thank you.
I am engaged today.
Yes.
Oh boy. Tune in, everybody. This is going to be a gooder.
That's what we'll call it. And off we go. Martin, very excited to have you on board here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're located, and what's on the go for you right now.
Yeah, I think I'm located in Mont-Tremblant, so right beside the mountain. So I live in the forest, where this is where I get most of my inspiration, because we get to play outside all the time. Mm-hmm. We run, we bike, we swim, we hike. We spend our days outside, winter and summer. So this is where I am situated. And right now it's almost like it's summer break. It's the speaking season was just finished last week with the last speech in St. John's, New Brunswick, and now I'm back home. Recharging to get back into gear in late August.
Absolutely exciting. Thank you. And we love what you do. We've had the opportunity to follow you for a period of time now. And there's always a lot of energy and excitement around what you do. Now, we've got a few questions we wanted to ask you. And I know that our viewers today, now you might be watching this on repeat because you might be in the US. And we just want to wish everybody a great Independence Day in the US. And if you missed us as well, happy Canada Day previously. Any celebrations that you want to share, Simon?
Well, I'm back.
Yay!
Here it is in itself. That's phenomenal. We missed you, and we missed your smile as well.
We did.
Yeah, but we're glad that you're back. Now, Scott, you wanted to ask Martin something right off the top. What was it?
Well, so I'm a big believer in sales that research is critical. So in preparing for this, I went on to Martin's LinkedIn profile, and the first thing I saw that I wanted to ask him about, which isn't sales related, but I'm sure we can spin it, is that Martin, you were a ski patrol. What was that all about?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's my best friend Richard and I. We were young back then. We were 25-ish, and we wanted to go skiing for free. We didn't want to pay to go skiing. So we went to the mountain and we said, how can we ski for free? And they said, well, you could sign up to be a ski patrol. So we looked at each other and said, you know what? high five, let's do this. We did a weekend course to get there, and I can tell you nothing teaches more on the sense of urgency, being calm under pressure, serving others with heart, and all of this in minus 20 degrees in a double black diamond hill that is going like this, and strapping someone to a sled and then going down the hill. And I can tell you that what I learned there, I also bring to the various teams that I meet, because I mean, one thing is for sure, you cannot control the environment that is around you, but you can decide and make the choice on how you're going to show up on that hill. And that's the basic of my message when I meet teams here, there, and everywhere.
That's great analogy and a great question, Scott. And it's interesting. I always encourage people, especially leaders, that their side hustles can really help complement, and you bring those transferable skill sets from other things that you do. And that's just what you described there. And we learned a little bit more about you as well. You had me completely engaged and involved until you said minus 20. And then I kind of went,
that's the beauty of it.
That's a warm day in Winnipeg in the wintertime. So that's
you lost me on skiing.
You lost Simon on skiing. Yeah, you're not a twin planker, are you, Simon?
No, it was just, excuse me, that's a bit rude. I just think that you shouldn't swear on places like this. It's not good. Martin, I'm so sorry for Rick. I mean, really, he does this every time, bringing in his words. When we think about, skiing, it's just a total loss of control, and I can't have that. And, when you said about wanting to ski for free, I mean, why would you pay to do something so crazy? I just don't get it, but there we are. But then I'm complete juxtaposition because I did go bungee jumping, so I've done that. So I'm probably talking out my ass. Martin, when we think about the way that people show up for work, and you talked about you have to check your attitude when you show up in minus 20 degrees. When people are showing up in their organizations, even in the most adverse conditions, we always hear the term employee engagement bounded about. It's often bounded about by HR professionals. We do hear it there. We see surveys on employee engagement, and we know that the general definition is around the emotional commitment that employees have towards their organization and its goals. So in other words, do they hold a high opinion? And if so, why? When it comes to sales specifically, and I'm sure this leans into other areas, we know what the term employee engagement means, but do you think that employees actually share that meaning themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, sometimes I think that managers and salespeople do not have the same definition of engagement. Let's be clear. I mean, managers see engagement as almost like a performance metric. Is the team productive? Is that employee making the calls? If they're making the calls, they're engaged. Yeah. And if you flip it and you go to the employee or the sales people, they feel engagement as a feeling of do I matter into what I do on a daily basis? How do I contribute to the overall mission of this organization? And that is, if the organization has a mission that is not only on the wall, and it's actually in the halls, because I think that's the biggest challenge right now. Is a lot of organizations have a mission and a why and a purpose and so on, but when it gets to meeting the sales team, it's all about the numbers. It's about the metrics.
Yeah.
So it's not about the mission anymore. We forget that. We tend to forget that there must be someone at the end of that chain. We're supposed to help someone. I'm sort of hoping that we're helping someone, but we don't talk about them. We talk about the metric.
See, the
Right.
thing is, I find that when we start to think about people talking about engagement, we talk about whether they're engaged with the organization. And you said about them, being engaged with the company's goals and the way the company works. I'm personally of the opinion that that is an outdated way of thinking these days. I think that people are expecting organizations and managers to be engaged with their goals, how you make me feel good. Because if you can make me feel good, then I in turn will have a good opinion of the business. And it's a funny kind of way. It's like in sales, we say, don't necessarily think about your targets too much. Think about helping your customer make money, and you'll make money by default.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thinking. And it feels like this constant striving to achieve a tick in the box, a metric that says we're great because we're hitting these numbers and our survey says this.
Yeah.
When the reality is, it feels like the business is talking about itself rather than really it should be talking about its people and what its people want. And in today's world where mental health plays such a big role, where actually outdated notions like appraisals and what have you, those outdated metrics, need to be replaced with us thinking about what's important to our employees, and the rest will fall into place.
I'm fully with you, because when you look at some of the people out there right now, I mean, data right now, whether you look at Gallup data or even internal data, organizations wise, which sometimes I don't really trust, because employee surveys I think they're flawed. There's a huge bias inside these internal data of engagement. It's depending on the source of data you look at, it's from 20 to 30% of the people out there are actively engaged in what they do. 20 to 30%. That means that there is 70% that are disengaged right now, and it's around 20%, close to 17% of people out there that are actively disengaged right now inside what they do, meaning that, I mean, they go to work backwards, they park backwards. It's not for safety reasons. It's just to get the heck out of there faster at the end of the day, because a job is just a job.
Yeah.
And I say, you know what? We spend about 70% of our awakened hours in work mode. Prepare for work. We are at work. We get back from work, and then it keeps spinning at night. 70%. If we spend 70% of our time and we are disengaged from that, I mean, seriously, life is going to be friggin' long.
It is.
No wonder, I mean, burnout and stress and so on, and people are leaving because it seems like there's nothing to care for anymore.
No.
So how do you help people? And Martin, let me jump in, because look at all these excited people. And I assume that this is during a workshop that you ran and things, and you've got the little smiley ball going there. How are you helping people during these workshops? What's one thing that you can share that leaders should be doing to help people be happy at work, to be more engaged during their work day? What would you share with the leaders out here?
I'll explain to you what this smiley ball is. And the idea is, we have to admit that I have a question for you. Do you think
he's gone?
Do you believe?
That's it.
That's it. He just does that and disappears, Martin.
Yeah.
He just goes.
Oh, there he is.
Do you guys believe that someone that crosses your path can influence the course of your day?
Yes.
For good or
for bad?
For bad.
122%. Yeah.
So that means that all the people that cross your path, you have the choice and power to influence their day for good or for bad.
So it's bi-directional there.
Yeah, it is. And to me, it's completely a question of choice. And sometimes people come and see me after a keynote session and they say, you know what, sometimes I think maybe I don't have the choice. And I say, wait. I'm not saying that you're going to decide everything that's going to be in front of you during your adventure. But one thing is for sure is you can decide on how you're going to approach it and deal with it. That is a question of choice. So either you go around and you spend your days, and right now there are people here, there, and everywhere around us, maybe some are listening right now, that have this black ball of energy inside them 365 days a year. Stress, anxiety, frustration, sadness, don't feel like going. They have that 365 days a year inside them. And maybe even, I'm more of the yellow smiley ball, and maybe you are as well, but we just admitted that sometimes people can influence our day, and we end up with that black ball of energy. So either we decide to walk around with this one, or we decide to walk around with this. That is a question of choice.
It is.
And that we need to make on a moment-to-moment basis.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not as simple as we might think it is.
So I love this topic, and obviously we don't have enough time to get it. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at being aware of these things. And, as Rick and Simon both know, part of my happy place is that we've had dogs, or we're watching our son's dog right now. And part of my happy place is taking a break and going for a 15-minute walk with the dog. And there's a park at that. And I just realized that's if you talk about Mont Tremblant being your happy place, taking the dog for a walk is my happy place, or making time to go for a ride on my motorcycle. And I think I'm not going to pretend to be the expert here, but this notion of choosing to be happy, which is obviously sometimes challenging, I feel is almost like, and I think this is important for salespeople, sales leaders, everybody in business, is to recognize those things that bring you joy and make time for them in your lives. So as someone who I think has a lot more expertise in this area, Martin, what is your thought on that? Like, I feel like we get ourselves on the hamster wheel of busy and don't make enough time for those people and those things that bring us joy. And what would be your comment on that?
Well, my comment is that at some point you need to remember why you're doing what you're doing. And when we say we need to bring some of that happy feeling inside, I say, you know what? If we are spending 70% of our awakened hours in work mode, we need to remember why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we need to stop outsourcing our motivation to either sales managers being cheerleaders and organizations being our therapists. This is not it. I mean, it is a question of choice, and to actually to appreciate, to go out and make those calls on a sales day, to appreciate, to sit down with a customer and uncover whatever is happening right now, and how can you enable ease their life with whatever you're providing. We need to remember that, and if we do, all of a sudden we find that this is cool. This is where we find our happiness in what we do. And if we remember why we do it, then that's when we get the fulfillment. We get back in the car at the end of the day and we say, you know what? I made a difference today.
I helped somebody, right?
Yeah.
They weren't a means to an end. They weren't a means to a quota. I helped somebody solve a problem, or I progressed in helping somebody, right? I think that's a great perspective.
Right. And that will look after the KPIs that you talk about that the company wants to see as well. And it's so important that we're focusing here on the people, as you mentioned, Martin, as Simon mentioned earlier as well, because at the end of the day, we know it's people that will grow companies, but it's the great leaders, happy leaders. I'm glad that this matches Simon's shirt as well. It's the happy leaders that grow the people. And that's what we should be focusing on a regular basis. So great points going forward.
I think there's also that element as well around you making a personal choice about how you show up. Mm-hmm. And I just want to share with you at the moment stuff that's going on with me. And, you guys know, I have just had my knee replaced. And you know what? Everybody that I'm talking to who I have said, I've had my knee replaced, or you find people that have had similar things. All they're doing at the moment is when they talk to me about it, if they know someone that's had it, or they've been through it, or they know something about it, everything they're telling me is around the pain. Oh, it must be really painful. I've heard it's the worst pain you go through. It must be ages to get back to work. It takes you ages to walk. This, and this. And my response to them is exactly the same. And that response is, yes, you're right. But guess what? I've got a new knee. And you know what? I might have pain, but I haven't got pain in my knee anymore. And that means I'm going to be able to walk around. So what I'm doing is I'm changing my focus, because otherwise I'm going to be sat in this. And I'm always reminded, and the reason I do this is something I was taught by a mentor of mine years ago, who said to me, you must always fundamentally remember the difference between three things: carrots, eggs, and coffee beans.
Oh boy.
If you take a raw carrot and you look at it in its raw state, it's hard. If you put it into boiling water, it goes soft and mushy. How many people do you know who are tough on the outside, but you put them in a tough situation, they go mushy? Eggs are soft and fragile, yet you put them into boiling water, they toughen up. But the coffee bean is the one of choice, because the coffee bean doesn't change. The coffee bean changes the water. It changes the environment. So what we should be doing is thinking, when we are presented with situations that are stressful and difficult, we should be thinking about how we change the environment through our own actions. It's a choice we have. You know, we hear people say, find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, let's start thinking in that way, because if we don't enjoy the job we're doing, go and find another job. Go and find another job. Go and do something else. Stack shelves in a supermarket if it brings you joy.
Yeah.
But do something else.
And you know what? At the end of me, they say, you know what? I think I just realized something. And I say, go ahead. And they said, I think I'm going to leave this job. And then the organizer is right beside me going like,
that wasn't what we wanted.
well, and you know what? I've had presidents of organizations call me weeks after my talks and say, you know what? We just had a vice president hand in their resignation, and I'm so sorry, that wasn't the goal, and so on. And they said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
We needed that.
Yeah.
For people either, and I've had the opposite also, where I remember that was very interesting. It was I was doing two events, one in their plant in southern Quebec and one in southern Ontario. I got to the southern Ontario event, and right before I start, VP of HR comes to see me and says, I just want you to know we invited one of the VP of sales that is in charge of production also, and he just handed in his resignation yesterday. But he knows everybody, and everybody looks up, and it's going to create a wave. But we invited him anyway. He can say goodbye to everyone, and then. So I say, okay, good. Thanks for the heads up. We do the Inspire keynote. And then I go to the plant in southern Quebec. President is waiting for me in the door, and I say, what's up? And he says, I have to talk to you before the show. I say, what's up? And he says, remember that VP that handed in his resignation? He came to see us at the end of the show and said, can we forget about that letter that I handed in yesterday? I think I can find my happiness here. I think I just realized that this is where I belong.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? Just by him staying, this paid for both shows, the airplane and everything.
That's your best testimonial right there.
Yeah.
But at this, so I'm in at a certain point, decide, and I'm not saying that you need quit your job and then, but I mean, make a plan. If you're not finding the your happiness where you are, then make a move. Do it. Stop complaining. Stop whining all the time. I've once heard that 90% of the people do not care about your problem, and the other 10% are happy you're having these problems. So at some point, choose, make a choice.
Martin, I heard that happiness is an inside job.
Oh, well, definitely. It doesn't come from the outside. The I don't I You're probably aware of Mo Gadot. He talks a lot about happiness, and he talks a lot about people trying to add stuff in. And his theory, which I just love, is that no, it's happiness is an elimination job.
Yeah.
Where whatever the stress is in your life, if you can find a solution to it and get rid of it, you're happier. So it's not about bringing stuff in. It's about eliminating the stress and the negative instead of trying to bring some stuff in.
That's a great point. You know, what we found too is that less is more, and definitely just being happy with the situation that you're in right now and showing some gratitude as well. I want to go back with something that Simon said too. Remember when change comes. See, Simon just went through something which is very, I want to speak for you, traumatic and so on, but it's very involved and engaged. And look at your beautiful dog.
There
He's
he
just
is.
This walk. Sorry, he's just hijacked.
Oh, don't apologize. Artie's the best.
Now we're all feeling happy and smiling. Look at that, Artie. Artie's amazing. But the thing with change that I want to mention is that, it can be very scary at the beginning. And it might have been for Simon going through the knee replacement. Right now he's in the middle and it's very messy. But I know at the end, as Simon said, it's going to be beautiful. That's what change is all about. So don't be afraid to make a change, knowing that the end result's going to be better, as Martin said, with a type of a plan, which is great. Martin, listen, are you reading anything right now? What's one of your favorite books?
Favorite books. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and all his Start With Why stuff, which is probably it comes out in my work also. And I'm right now listening to a lot of podcasts. I like Steve Bartlett with Diary of a CEO. I love these long-lasting podcasts. Maybe it's because I drive a lot to go from keynote to keynote. But I like this because you get to live an adventure with someone for 2.5 hours. And I have something for you on change, Rick, because you just talked about change. And right now I have this new keynote that is called Momentum Inspiration for Action. And it's how to navigate through change. And have you ever realized that a lot of people say that people are scared and resist change? And actually, that's not it. We do not resist change. People are resisting the fact that they're fearing the loss of something. If change happens, we're fearing something that we might lose, and it might be different things. You talked about comfort. It can be ego. It can be just the fact that what if we fail? It can be also credibility. But and there is the loss aversion theory that says that the fear of losing something is twice as high as the gain of winning something. So when we see change, we are fearing the loss of something, and loss is twice as strong as winning something. I see a lot of organizations bringing these PowerPoints and these meetings to explain the change and the benefits and how we're going to do it. When people are stuck into, are we going to talk about what I might be losing in there? And if ever we were able to talk about that and have a sit down and see, what do you fear losing? And how can we reproduce that into the new world that we're embarking in? We would see people walk into change and accept it, because sometimes we choose change on our own. So why resist other change? So
Well,
very
that's
interesting.
that's a great point. And we know, I mean, there's only those two types of change, one that we create ourselves, which we're very optimistic on. It's usually the change that comes our way that we didn't ask for, that we're not so happy about. So the ability of a leader to be able to position the change in a positive light, because as you said, Martin, everybody's sitting there with their whiffums. They're sitting there, well, what's in it for me? It's all about me. So we have to be able to explain that and gain that level of trust from the people that this change is going to be positive moving forward. All great points. I want to bounce over to Scott for a minute. And by the way, we're not going to go 2.5 hours on this podcast. We're going to wrap up very shortly and keep it to point for people. Scott, final word. What do you
So a couple of things. This is a really cool topic for me. Way back a million years ago, I was a psychology major because I've always enjoyed sort of dynamics and what makes people tick. And what you described, Martin, I would say that I'm one of those people that's more driven by fear of failure than success. And I think that, so I think I understand that point. And how I would describe it is this idea that so whether the change is something that we embark on ourselves or happens to us, I call them oh shit moments. And the idea is that we tend to steer away from oh shit moments. But, if you ask people, and I'm sure you have way more experience than I do, if you ask people, think about the last couple of times that you felt like you were in over your head and that you were fearful, what ended up happening? More often than not, they probably managed to get through it. And that oh shit moment became something that they're now comfortable with and they're better at. So it's this notion of, fear of failure, i.e., I get it. But I feel like if you get comfortable managing those moments, you're gonna build. You can oh shit moments make us better. So maybe, I don't know if we have time for a question, but one of the things, like, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, and I'm wondering if Martin, if you can just very succinctly say for salespeople and sales leaders here who want to choose or love their job again, what is one or two things that you would get them to think about as we wrap up here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we need to create moments that matter with the team. And we need to remember our teams, why we're doing what we're doing.
Okay.
And it's not about reaching the number at the end of the month or the quarter. It's about enabling people to X, Y, and Z. I'm sort of hoping that your organization has a clear why and purpose message. And we need to remind our sales team that they're on a mission. They're on a mission to reach that, to enable these people, which are friends, family, neighbors, on how we can enable their life. And if we do that, then we can recognize and the progress that we're doing with weekly huddles and bi-weekly calls and so on.
I love it.
And maybe start meetings with stories instead of data and the last numbers on the chart. And I say momentum comes from clarity. And too often, we need to remember people that I think most of the people show up with great intentions.
Yeah.
They show up to make a difference. And if we can enable them to make that difference, at the end of the day, they're going to get back into their car or again drive home and have that feeling of fulfillment that they've made a difference and that it all makes sense. Yeah, and when it makes sense, we wake up the next day and we say, let's do it again.
And we feel fulfilled, which is great. And I know that stories do sell, whether you're selling products, services, or ideas and change. Simon, over to you for a wrap up.
So I just want to pick up very quickly on something that Martin has just said, which is creating moments that matter. And it's reminded me of a podcast that I think people should watch, which is hosted by a hotelier in the UK called Thomas Cox. Kochs. He is the general manager of the 5-star hotel, the Corinthia in London. And he talks on a TED Talk about moments that matter with customers. And I've translated it to moments that matter with employees. He says that when you create a moment that matters, you can break those moments down into 3 areas, and they spell out the word T: technical moments, emotional moments, and aesthetic moments. They will have a moment where they realize that the technology they have that supports their role, whether they're in sales or not, actually does support them and helps to enable their role. It's a moment that they realize, and it matters, and it keeps them engaged. There is an emotional moment where they feel something about the business, and how they feel is so important. Remember, it said that your culture is often defined now, not as the way that things are done around here, but as the way your people feel about your business on a Friday afternoon and a Sunday evening. Yep. And lastly, is an aesthetic moment. The A of T is an aesthetic moment. These are the things that people can see. Leadership. Can they see good leadership? Can they see people being what they want them to be? Can they see that all the way around them? And when they have these moments, they are more likely to choose their attitude based on what they can see. So therefore, they're creating these moments. And this is where we see this engagement piece coming in. So I love the fact that you talk about those magical moments, because they are so important. And if you look up Thomas Cox on YouTube, have a look at his speech about moments that matter. It's absolutely brilliant in the customer experience ring, which is what we use.
It's a great talk. I saw it. It's a great.
He's super.
Yeah, beautiful.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Scott. We're very excited to have had Martin on our show here. If you want to get more of Martin, where can they get a hold of you, Martin? Where's the best place to reach out to you?
All social media platform, I'm there. Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, right? Martin Lesperance. Or look for a bald guy with glasses, or maybe you're going to.
That's me, Martin.
Yeah, you can get a few.
Either you find me or a new friend, but
it's a win-win then, right? Simon or Martin.
Absolutely, but I just want to pick up. Did you notice then, Rick, how Martin pronounced his name?
Yes,
that's the way to do it.
Thank you. I'll get better on that.
It's a question of choice.
Scott, who have we got on the next show? Scott, who have we got coming up next?
Okay, so again, this is going to be tough to. All this feel good stuff is going to be tough to follow. But our next guest is going to be Larry Levine.
Yes,
it's going to be on the Sales Lab podcast. Oh, sorry, Simon. What did you? I missed what Simon said. Simon, what did you say there?
Yeah, I think it was pretty exciting. But we're here to thank Martin. Everybody reach out to Martin and let's give him a great thank you for being on our show today on the Sales Lab podcast. Martin, we really appreciate you and your energy as well. And we need to remember that we're creating moments that matter. We need to stop outsourcing happiness because it's an inside job. And I love what you said about being an enabler as well. That's so huge for everybody. Martin, thanks for being on the Sales Lab. Thanks to our viewers for being here as well. Have yourself a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for being here.
For attending the Sales Slap podcast, feel free to reach out to your hosts, Rick, Simon, and Scott, and our guests from this episode for more information. We look forward to seeing you next time.